In this video, we will learn how to create Get API to get one record from the database. In this book repository, here we can add one more method. So copy this method and paste it below that. Here change the method name. Let's say get book by ID. Here we have to get one book from all the books by using ID because ID is the unique column in the table. In the parameter, we have to pass book ID. So integer book ID. We will get this book ID from HTTP request. Based on this ID, we will get the book data. So in this line, here we can use find method, find async, because we are working with async programming in this application. Here we have to pass book ID. This find async method only work with primary key. If you want to fetch the data by using other columns, then you have to use var class here. Here instead of this book ID, here we can use x.id equal. Here we can pass the book ID. Here instead of this to list async, now let's use first async or first or default async. So here I am going to use first or default async method. The difference between these methods is if you are searching a book, that book does not exist in the database. In that scenario, if you are using a first async method, then you will get an error. But if you are using first or default async method, you will get null value. There will be no error. Now let's update this return type also here. Remove this list from here. That's it. This is how we can create Get API method to fetch one item from the database. If you want to fetch data based on some logic, then you need to write all those logic inside this where condition. For example, if you want to fetch the books which contains the title above 15 character length, you can write the query inside this where condition here. Then you will get the corresponding data. Now copy this method name from here and go to iBook repository. You paste it, then put a semicolon. That's it. Now let's go to books controller. In this controller, let's create one more action method. So copy this method and paste it here, and then change the method name get book by ID. In the route, we have to pass book ID and then parameter also integer book ID. We are getting this ID from route, so we have to use attribute like from route attribute over here. Then update this variable where book. Here we will get a single book. Then here change the method name get book by ID async method. Here we can pass book ID. Update the return statement here. That's it. We have updated the route and then method name. Here we are calling get book by ID async method. Now to test this API, let's run this application. The application is running. Go to Postman. Here already we are in get method. In the URL, we have to pass book ID. Let's say 1. Then click the send button here. See here, we got the one single book. Now let's change this ID to, then click the send button here. Here we got the ID 2 and title and author. Now let's enter some wrong data, wrong ID. Click the send button here. You can see here we got 204 no content status code. This is not a valid status code because the data does not exist in the database. So we must get a 404 status code. Let's see how can we do that. Go to Visual Studio, stop the execution. Here in this controller, if book equal null means, here we have to return not found method, else we will return the single book data. That's it. Let's run this application again. Now click the send button with this ID 20 because see here in SQL Server Management Studio, in this books table we are having only 3 records. Okay, now go to Postman, click the send button here. This ID 20 is not available in our database. See here, this is the type, title not found, status 404. So here we got the 404 status code. If you are passing the correct ID, here we got the data. I hope this video is helpful to you. Thanks for watching this video.